service. All right, welcome. Never quite sure when I'm live on YouTube, but I think we are live. I see the little loading bar. Welcome to Clear Vision Wednesday. This is my weekly live show about all things vision, eyesight, vision improvement, and the things that we can do, the little things that we can do every day to make our eyesight better and improve our vision, if possible. And today we have somebody back who was here before, an amazing holistic eye doctor, and we're going to talk about a topic that we don't talk about much. So let me bring you on first, Dr. Valerie. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. Thank you.
Yeah, you're really at the forefront of, research and putting things out there and really educating us on a more holistic approach. So I'm really excited about having you back. And so our topic today is hydration, right? I have my water bottle here, right? I learned to drink half your body weight in American pounds in ounces. So let's say I weighed 120 pounds, I would have to drink 60 fluid ounces of water every day and I would be good. So is that true or is that not true?
So when we think about hydration, it's not the same thing. The water that's inside of us is very different from the water that we drink. So a lot of times when I'm with patients and I say, you might be a little dehydrated, and everyone says, I drink a ton of water. And that's not really what I'm talking about. So it's really interesting how water gets made inside of us and what it actually does. So the last time I was here, we spoke about sunlight, full spectrum sunlight, and how important that is for all of those reasons. But the other aspect of that full spectrum sunlight is that it powers up our mitochondrial cells, our energy cells in the body. And we need our mitochondria, and I did mention this last time, but we need our mitochondria to be working really well to keep us healthy. Most issues that happen, most modern diseases happen when our mitochondria are not working well, and a lot of it has to do with the water that gets made. So we know that mitochondria makes ATP. Everyone knows that that's how we have our energy, is the ATP. But what we don't think about is that the mitochondria make water inside of us, and the water that gets made, and mitochondria are controlled by light. So just to backtrack a bit, electrons are flowing through the mitochondria. Electrons carry light. Different proteins in the mitochondria respond to different frequencies of light and do different things. So full spectrum sunlight is very important to keep our mitochondria working and making water the way it's supposed to. So when the mitochondria make water the way it's supposed to, the water that gets made has enough energy to restructure itself into a fourth phase of water. Actually, that's what it's called. And there's a lot, you could look at research from Dr. Jerry Pollack and even people before him, talking about how that water restructures itself into a crystal gel, a liquid crystal gel. So it has properties. It's not liquid that we think of that we drink, and it's not ice, but it's somewhere in between. It's actually a gel. It's like a gelatin, or just has that viscous, really powerful jelly-like substance, because it restructures into this crystal that it's not really H2O. The H2O will turn into H3O2, which is just a different structure of water. And what's so beautiful about this water is that it will form any single surface in our body that attracts water. We call it hydrophilic surface. So water-loving surfaces will attract the water, and it forms a gel around all of these substances. So we're talking about DNA, proteins, everything in our body basically that attracts water will form this gel around it. And we call it an exclusion zone. And the reason why we call it an exclusion zone is because when this gel happens, we have a zone of negative electrons or negative charge next to a zone of positive charge. So now we have a built-in battery in our bodies. We literally have voltage or electricity that happens around all of our surfaces. So everything is covered in this exclusion zone water, and that's what gives us the energy to work. And it's a very interesting way to think about it, because we all know that we need more negative electrons to be powerful, to be healthy. We all know that, if we have more negative electrons, we have more ability to work. But those electrons are coming, a lot of those electrons are coming from the electrons in this exclusion zone water. And what's so interesting about this water is that because it has a whole zone of electrons that can flow throughout the entire body, it's pushing anything bigger than an electron out of this zone. So we have the power of this electron-rich zone to just be transmitting electricity and energy and throughout the entire body at the speed of light. It's really interesting. So if we think about how things work in the body, if we have a sad emotion, how the whole body, we could feel it, immediately because of these, of the electricity in the body, because of this water. And it excludes toxins, it excludes other things, and it just allows the electrons to flow. It carries light energy, it carries sound energy, it carries all of this beautiful energy in the body. And that's our voltage. And then next to it, we have the zone of positive, and that also does some beautiful things where we can move protons throughout the body as well. So this exclusion zone water is crucial in how we work. If we don't have this exclusion zone water, we are dehydrated on such a cellular level or a molecular level that we lose energy, and so many things go wrong, including a lot of our eye health in general relies on hydration, inner hydration.
Wow, that was a great scientific explanation. I absolutely love that. So, well, we can talk about the whole body, and we can obviously we also want to talk about the eyes in specifically, right? So my next question is so to produce this exclusion zone water, right, to make sure that we are really deeply hydrated on a molecular level, what can we do? And especially when we think about our eyes, because I think of the vitreous in the eye, that kind of gel-like structure that holds your eyeball in place, that's between the lens and the retina, right? That gel, that stuff, that the area where we get the floaters a lot of times when we get older. Does that have anything to do with that? Is that a different? And I know now I asked you two different questions, but let's talk about vitreous humor first, and then in generally what we can do to deeply hydrate all our cells.
The vitreous is interesting because it's a very special collagen, and it has collagen and hyaluronic acid, and it does form a gel. So there is a hydration standpoint to that. Water acts a little differently when we're talking about collagen. It's even more special the way it links to collagen, because it acts even more in a slightly different way. So it's not necessarily the exclusion zone water that we think about, like this in our retina and around our nerve tissue. The collagen layers are hydrated in the eye, the cornea, the lens, but it's not. I don't want to use the word exclusion zone water, but yeah, hydration is a very big aspect of that vitreous gel, and there are many things that can dehydrate parts of the eye, including the vitreous, can be dehydrated. So the things we can do to help when we're exposed to full spectrum sunlight, our mitochondria are activated. So the red light, which is always present in the sun, powers up our mitochondria to allow it to literally make more water. Infrared light, which is also always present in the sun, has been shown to expand exclusion zone water in the body. So when we're absorbing infrared light just by being outside, through our eyes, through our skin, we are expanding our exclusion zone water. When we're exposed to ultraviolet light, and again, ultraviolet light has its own, I know when we talk about ultraviolet light in our eyes, there's always what do you mean I can get ultraviolet light in my eyes? We did mention that last time, but we do need some of that ultraviolet light through our eyes. So when we're exposed to that and on our skin, it's been shown to generate more electrons in this water. So again, we need that full spectrum of light. When we're indoors and we're exposed to just blue light, again, that artificial signal of blue light that has no red, no infrared, no ultraviolet light, we're just being oxidized, and it's dehydrating our mitochondria. It's actually, it's not allowing our mitochondria to make as much water, so it's shrinking that exclusion zone. The other thing that happens when we're exposed to Wi-Fi signals, it allows a lot of calcium to get into the cells, a little too much, and the mitochondria think of that as a danger response and have to try to get that calcium, try to do something with that calcium, and that's also making the water go down. It's dehydrating the body as well. So just by getting full spectrum sunlight, we're helping hydrate us from an inner level. The other thing that helps to expand our exclusion zone or give us more electrons in our bodies is just grounding, just getting our bare feet and just getting outside as much as we can. The earth is a repository of electrons, so we just want to absorb as much as possible. We do also need to drink clean water, and I can get into that as well. But as far as, from the level of an internal hydration, we want to do the things that are going to help our mitochondrial. So even stress can dehydrate our bodies. What's interesting about the exclusion zone water, which also links to the eyes, is our cardiovascular system and our lymph system is we need good exclusion zone water for that as well, because the water will coat the vessels inside our body. Our vessels, our entire vascular system is coated with exclusion zone water, as are our lymph vessels. And blood flows because of the exclusion zone water. That's how blood is flowing through our vessels, because that zone of negative is actually pushing the blood through, or it's allowing the blood to flow without getting clogged, without forming clots. And even our red blood cells have zones of exclusion zone water around it to allow our blood to flow. So when we have issues with blood pressure and poor flow, I mean, hypertension can have a poor effect on the retina. Poor lymph flow. There's a lot of lymph tissue in the eye, and we need it, and that has to do with glaucoma as well. Lymph tissues are also require good exclusion zone water to allow that regular water or lymph to flow through the body. So it plays a huge role in almost everything that we're dealing with.
Oh my God, there's so many things that you just said. I'm trying to remember. Not long ago, I had a naturopathic doctor look at my living blood under the microscope, and we found areas where the blood, like you said, they were all the little cells were all nicely separated and flowing and all happy. And then there were other areas where they were like more clumped up, right? Where they're like, okay, probably not enough exclusion zone water. Now, obviously, I work on the computer all day. There is internet, and I do a lot of grounding, and I'm in Mexico right now for a few months. So I'm, going on the beach every day, and I'm going outside. But that's one question that I have. So, obviously I do drink quite a lot of water. I do those things, and I go get sunlight and get all these things, but still he gave me the advice, let's maybe talk a little bit about water, to put some salt into the water. So obviously there's electrolytes, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's what he recommended, and I'm wondering if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So with our water, we want to make sure that we're drinking water that is as natural as possible and as clean as possible. And when we're drinking, say, natural mineral water or spring water, or we're adding electrolytes to our water, we're building more structure in that water. So when we talk about drinking, say, structured water, it's a little different it's not the same as, say, drinking exclusion zone water, because that gets made in our body. But anytime we have minerals, in water, minerals are going to form exclusion zone water around the minerals, and it's just going to create more structure. Anytime water is kind of structured or changes its shape, it gives us more energy. And it sounds kind of weird, but structured water carries more good energy for the body. It has, because water can carry information. It's interesting, especially in a liquid crystal gel. We use crystals are they actually can carry a lot of energy and a lot of good information. If it's like an antenna. So when we're drinking water that has a lot of structure to it, we're giving our body good energy, more natural energy, as opposed to drinking tap water that's full of fluoride or toxins that are actually going to reduce our exclusion zone water. So if we have to be really careful, if we have water that has fluoride, that's a really fast way to destroy our exclusion zone water. It messes with our collagen network and everything. Same thing with glyphosate. Foods that have that are full of pesticides are very damaging. So from a water standpoint, yes, adding minerals to water. A lot of people will say they like distill water to keep it really clean.
Exactly. That was my question, because I heard that from several health practitioners. Make sure you distill your water and then add the minerals back in.
Right. So you want to make sure you're adding minerals back in, and also can even kind of move it around or structure it a little. When water moves like it does in nature in springs, it does have more energy. It does get more structured. So distilled water kind of loses that energy. It's really just clean with nothing, nothing really in it. It's not like alive, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So you want to just add minerals and add structure to it. There's different ways. I mean, just moving things around. I have a little wand that I use to structure my water, just to kind of impart a little more energy to it. So water is really important. Again, clean water. Spring water is great. Mineral water is great. Anything more natural is the best kind of water we can drink. Or if we are filtering it, we want to make sure we are adding those minerals. I like to actually make Sole water. Actually, in the morning when I wake up, I have clean filtered water, and I make Sole water. Is just it's kind of like making your own mineral water, but it's using a really high quality sea salt, putting it in water until it's fully absorbed into that water, and then I just add a little half a teaspoon or a teaspoon to that water in the morning. It's really a nice way to hydrate after being asleep for the whole night, because we do need to keep up the volume in our body. So that's not affecting our exclusion zone, but it is hydrating keeping our blood flowing and making sure that we maintain the correct volume in the body. So it is important to get that good water as well.
So just to backtrack on a little thing, so
Mm-hmm.
adding salt of water is basically a good thing. What you said is that better than adding electrolytes, which is obviously including potassium, magnesium, sodium. What was the fourth one? Now I'm blanking on the fourth one, but is
So
that
electrolytes are great. They are great, but I guess the sea salt that I'm talking about has all the minerals in it as well. It's more of a mineral blend. So it's a similar idea. We just want
got
minerals, electrolytes, anything like that. Electrolytes, I think, are great, especially if someone, say, does a lot of sauna or a lot of exercise. You want to replenish all those, sodium and potassium, magnesium, things that are being depleted. But sauna is actually a really good way to improve our exclusion zone water as well. The infrared heat is wonderful to help us, expand our inner hydration. But we want to make sure we are replacing that with electrolytes and good water as well.
Okay, a couple more water questions.
Yeah.
So I've also heard, and I've been doing that not recently, but I have all these blue bottles and I put water in them and then I put them in the sunlight for an hour. So what is that all about? Because I heard that's really good.
I have that too. I have a blue bottle that I love. It actually is called, it's from the company Blue Bottle Love. Yeah, it's interesting about water. I know when I first learned about this, I said it sounds a little weird, but
All right?
it really
Yeah.
is interesting how much power and energy water can hold. And when water is in its natural state, it really does give us more energy. And there's something about a blue bottle or cobalt blue bottle that just helps water get structured. It's just shown to have more energy. And being outside, again, gives it more energy or more clusters of structure, I guess, as opposed to just, again, tap water. If you're actually drinking tap water unfiltered that has fluoride, you're actually dehydrating your body. I mean, it's really bad. So yeah, I think there's something to be said to drinking water that's more energetic. I guess that's a good way to say it. And I do the same thing.
And when you talk about movement, are you literally talking about one of those like milk frother thingies that you like, the little spinning things that or you stir the water with a spoon or?
So, I mean, you could even
Uh-huh.
swirling water, it kind of gives it energy. Some people have vortexing devices. I don't have that, but I do have something called an analemma wand. It's just like this. It's got this beautiful water in this quartz wand, and you just kind of stir your water, and it's just imparting structure into that water or energy into the water. I know my husband thinks I'm crazy, but I do kind of mix into just to give it a little more energy, a little bit more movement. So I
Okay.
do something like that. That's an easy way to just.
I love that. And we have things going on in the chat here on Zoom in my Clear Vision Club community about quads and adding those things. So obviously we had Trisha Kirby do an episode last week about hydration, and she talked about some other options to create more hydration with
Mhm.
water, including like like
Yeah.
using chia seeds or aloe vera to make the water more gel-like. What do you
Mhm.
think of those approaches? And is there anything else that you recommend when it comes to the water that we're drinking? What can we do to make it better?
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was great. Everything that she said was nice, was great. And the book that she mentioned, I really do love. There was a Quench was a wonderful book that I actually learned about the chia seeds as well in the water. Things like lemon and cucumber, anything that's going to add water because or gel to the water is definitely going to give us more structure. Again, it doesn't necessarily become exclusion zone water in the body, but it is hydrating us in a much better way.
Okay, great. There's a question on YouTube. I just noticed. I look over. How about magnetizing the water?
Oh, that's interesting. So the Earth's magnetic field is very powerful, and I've read or heard that when water is kind of stored in the Earth's magnetic field, like underground, it gives it a little more energy. Magnetism is a whole other story. I don't know that I can answer too much about the water, but just in general, the electromagnetic field of the Earth is very powerful. We need anytime we have electricity in our body, we're generating a magnetic field. So our blood flow is magnetic. Our mitochondria, everything is magnetic. So magnetism is a very important way to increase energy. We need a good magnetic flow in the body, just like we need electricity. And it's linked, but I don't know how to answer that about water. I wouldn't know how to add magnetic fields to water. I probably should know, but I don't really know how to answer that.
So obviously, we're not ever giving medical advice on this show or anything specific, but do you have like in terms of what I said in the beginning, right? I was told half your body weight, considering like US pounds, not kilos, and half of that in US fluid ounces is a good amount of water to drink. Like, and you said adding some salt to that, or, maybe using some of the shea or aloe vera to make it a little bit more gel-like, or lemon, or cucumber, or stirring it, or the blueberry, all the things we talked about. Is there an amount that you recommend? And what about like people with high blood pressure when it comes to adding? Because I know everybody with high blood pressure has heard, no sodium. Like, so what are your
Right.
thoughts on those things
I
and
know.
more exact
Um,
recommend?
yeah, it's interesting. So it's hard to give an amount. I feel like everybody's different. I think you need to make sure kind of just you have to know your body, right? So if your urine is very yellow and it's not, you can kind of tell if it's not yellow at all and it's too diluted, then you know you're drinking too much. And if it's on the darker yellow side, you know you need to drink more. I think there's depending on time of year, what you're doing. Like I think it varies. I hate to give just a drink this many ounces of water in a day. I think it is important to drink slowly and maybe hydrate as soon as you wake up in the morning. And with that salt or the sole water, I really just do that in the morning when I wake up. I don't really add too much salt throughout the day, maybe a little bit of minerals throughout the day. But just to kind of sip, we really, if we're gulping tons of water at once, we're not really absorbing it. So by having water and kind of sipping it throughout the day and making sure we're getting it even more earlier in the day and maybe slow down a little before bed so we don't have to wake up in the middle of the night, that's probably good. But as far as an amount, I mean, we want to make sure we do stay hydrated and we don't want to just try to catch up at the end of the day. I mean, there are days when I even realized, I said, oh my gosh, I didn't drink any water for the last 3 or 4 hours because I was busy at work. And then I try to catch up. You can't, it's not working. That won't hydrate us if we're just trying to catch up if we haven't been drinking all day. So we just want to be mindful of trying to make sure we're drinking throughout the day, not too much, not too little. I don't know if there's an actual amount that I can
Okay,
say.
that's fine. I mean, obviously, the more it's always interesting whenever I fly somewhere to Europe to see my family and I need to use the bathroom like, I don't know, 15 times in like 12 hours. And then a passenger sitting next to me, they literally get up once. I'm like, how do you like, so how do we know that we're actually getting the water inside of us in terms of like, how is it actually hydrating versus we just pee, in and we pee it out? Like, is there, so you talked about urine a little bit. The old rule was like the urine has to be totally clear. But it sounds like what you're saying is that
I
wasn't.
mean, I guess if it's, I feel like it should have some color, but as far as being depleted on an exclusion zone, like an internal level, when we're depleted of high, when we're not hydrated, if we're feeling stiff, if our muscles hurt, if we have stiff areas, that's usually dehydration, things like that. Headaches, a lot of headaches are caused by dehydration. Even high blood pressure has to do with dehydration on that level, meaning that we need exclusion zone water is a big portion of blood flow. There's a lot of different clues of being dehydrated, I guess, on an inner level. Gosh, I can't even think of just in general. I mean, you kind of just have to know yourself. I mean, if your skin is dry, you just want to stay moist. I don't really, I don't know. It's hard to say how much we need to drink. Obviously, the thirst mechanism, once we're thirsty, I mean, that's pretty extreme. We should probably just try to consistently drink water throughout the day before we get to a point where we're extremely thirsty. Being on a plane is very dehydrating just because we're exposed to tons of radiation, tons of Wi-Fi. We're separated from the Earth's magnetic field. We're up in the air. I mean, it's a very tough thing on the body to be dehydrated. So it's interesting that you are running to the bathroom so much. Are you drinking more when you're on planes, or maybe it is going right through? I don't know.
I
It's
drink a
interesting.
lot, and I always refuse ice cubes like any good European does. In the US, it's like I'm like, wait, no ice cubes when I order water in the restaurant too. I want to talk about that too, the water temperature. Definitely think it's important to cover that. And there was something else, and now it slipped my mind that I wanted to ask you. But yeah, let's talk about water temperature. Like because obviously I've heard from a Chinese doctor even room temperature is way too cold. We should drink water at our body temperature, which I don't know right now in Fahrenheit, exactly 97, 98 or something. No.
98.6. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, actually. I
Ice
don't
cubes
know.
and ways to, put ice cubes into even in ice cold beverages. Sometimes, you get the brain freeze. But what are you thinking about temperature of water? What's like
So
a,
I hate drinking cold water. I only feel comfortable drinking room temperature water. I don't know that it does. Again, I probably should know this, but I don't know if there's if there's something we should be doing. I just know that I think cold water is really hard to absorb for me. It's too hard to drink. So room temperature for me, it feels better. It just feels better for me. But I don't know that there's a good, I don't really have a good answer for that either. I don't know. I mean,
That's
drinking
okay.
tea,
So
we know that heat is, we drink tea, it's very soothing, things like that. As far as tea, there is a tea that can help kind of build exclusion zone water a little bit, holy basil, not to go overboard or drink too much of it, but that's actually been shown to just kind of help increase our internal exclusion zone, which is interesting. And that holy basil or Tulsi tea.
yeah, holy basil, I've gotten that. I put that in the YouTube chat, holy basil tea. So that brings me to the question, what about, we hear coffee is dehydrating. Like I always thought like, well, at the end of the day, if caffeine dehydrates you, that makes you sense, but you're still drinking the amount of 1 cup, let's say, of water. So it's like, how can it be more dehydrating than the amount of water that you're drinking? Do you have any opinion on
Yeah,
like caffeine factors?
it's just the way it's processed. It does dehydrate. So I'd say if you're drinking coffee, I would increase the amount of water just to kind of make up for that. I did see
Okay.
a hack that someone I don't remember where I saw it, but if you put a little salt in your coffee, you're not going to release water as much. You can hold on to some of that water. And I sometimes do that just because I tend to love sea salt. I do that. I put it in a lot of my food. But it is interesting. So yeah, you definitely want to increase the amount of water to make up for coffee, especially if you're having a lot of it, which I don't recommend.
No, I don't. I'm just wondering because a lot of us I mean, I like green tea too. But my question would be like, so if somebody comes to your office, right? Obviously, you're a practicing optometrist,
Mhm.
like you do an eye exam, like what are the things that you see when somebody is dehydrated? Like give us some of the symptoms where you'll be like, oh, you are really dehydrated.
So there's different conditions that are made worse with dehydration, but just from dry eyes in general, I mean, we need when someone is experiencing dry eyes, we have to work on hydration just obviously from a limb standpoint, from a cardiovascular standpoint, because of the blood vessels and the lymph flow and the amount of water that we're making, we need to be hydrated. So just dry eyes in general, headaches are a big thing, migraines are a big thing. We also need our retina will not work well unless we're hydrated. Like literally the light that gets processed through the eye and gets to our retina is using that exclusion zone water in that fascial network. We have, in addition, when we talk about exclusion zone water, also talking about we have a whole network of fascia in the body. We have collagen and water in this fascial network. That's where a lot of this electricity is flowing. And in the retina, we have kind of a collagen fascial network where it needs water because it has to do with melanin and water and the way light gets transmitted. But when we're talking about any kind of retinal issue or even glaucoma, we want to make sure that we're truly hydrated. It's very important in the eye itself because there's so much fluid there. As far as like we talked about vitreous and dehydration, that's blue light in general dehydrates the body a lot. So anybody who's sitting in front of a screen and just is having symptoms of dryness, allergies, it's also a big dehydration component is histamine release. So you get a lot of allergies um, and just poor health in general, just not feeling great.
What about like, cataract? Obviously, cataract affects the lens, right? The clear part of the
It's
eye and the cornea. Those are the two clear parts of the eyes.
right.
Cornea, usually astigmatism, keratoconus, or Fuchs dystrophy, or some other pathologies.
Mhm.
Any of those have to do with dehydration, or is that not related?
So it's interesting because again, that's the way the collagen is situated in the cornea and the lens. It is situated in such a way, obviously, that it's clear, that it's transparent. It's a very unique collagen situation. And there is a hydration component to collagen. When water is linked to collagen, it does something a little different than the exclusion zones. But the cornea has to be, we have to maintain the proper amount of hydration in the cornea. If there's too much regular water in that cornea, then we get swelling. It pushes the collagen apart. So the hydration component of cornea is really important. And the lens itself is also a layer of collagen. There's proteins, there's fluid in there as well. You get a lot of diabetics who have high blood sugar tend to get cataracts again because it's changing the water content. It's actually glycating some of those proteins. It's changing some of the water content. So there is a little link to hydration in general when it comes to collagen. I don't know that I would call it more of the exclusion zone water, but just the link of the way collagen has to be hydrated. Cornea is actually a little more dehydrated than some of our other surfaces because it is so, there's so much pressure there. It's lined up so well. The collagen has to be very tightly linked in order for light to flow through.
Okay, well, this has been really interesting. I'm looking if we have any particular questions on YouTube that I want to make sure that we ask you. Um, let's see, what else do we see? So the magnets, that was about putting a positive and a negative around the bottle, right, itself. So that was the
Okay.
yeah. I don't know if you have anything to say to that. Let's see. What is that? Check turgor of the skin. I don't know what turgor means. By pinching the hand skin and see if it returns immediately. Yeah, that's actually another question I have.
Okay.
So I don't see the exact question, but like people that have, I see that with my clients sometimes, especially when I used to work with people in person, like swelling, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
edema, there's water
Yeah.
retention. And my mom had that too. My mom has diabetes and high blood pressure. She's
Yeah.
on medication for those things, but she has this swelling, and then the doctor prescribes these water pills, right?
Yeah.
Almost like to take. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this? Because a lot of, as people get older, they might be having those issues. Like
Mm-hmm.
what?
So when we're swollen and puffy, it's because we have too much bulk water. And when I say bulk water, I mean just regular water that's not in an exclusion zone state. So again, we need to maintain exclusion zone around all of our vessels. And when we don't do that, we can actually have more just regular bulk water, which is increasing swelling and edema. Just like if you sprain your ankle, the fascial system kind of breaks apart a little bit, and all that bulk water comes rushing to try to help with inflammation, but we don't, that's not a good thing. It is in that sense. But the idea of having extra swelling or puffiness means that the exclusion zone water has been broken down, and now we have so much bulk water that we're not able to process it. So we get puffy. That has to do a lot with lymph flow, which usually means again that we're not allowing that lymph to flow. There's some stagnation there. And also just our fascia in general, it just by moving, we're going to generate electrons in movement. And when our fascia, our collagen gets very stiff, we're losing some exclusion zone water, or we're losing hydration in our collagen. And that can also lead to scar tissue or pain or puffiness, things like that. So I think it's very linked to making sure that our inner hydration is working well, our mitochondria are working well. Anything that goes downhill can create puffy, edema, fatigue, poor sleep, cardiovascular issue, lymph issues, dry eye, all of those things that can happen.
Okay, this has been so helpful. I mean, I guess lymph massage or getting massages in general. I work with little therapy balls, myofascial
Mm-hmm.
release they get some of that slide and glide of the fascia back so that
Great.
we can actually move without restriction. So
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked a lot about things that are not directly related to the eyes, but obviously the eyes are just I think the eyes, not just, but the eyes are almost like more sensitive and reactive to a lot of the things that we're doing, right? So a lot of times it
Yeah.
shows the eyes first.
Mm-hmm.
Would you give, so we talked a lot about, different things to add to water. We talked about the chia. I eat like a big chia porridge every day. I add lots of protein in that one, but it's not water with a few chia seeds, because I remember you can also buy, I've seen this before, where you buy water and it just looks like a bunch of chia seeds, like the bubble water, but mine is more like, it's not liquid, but it's also not super stiff. It's kind of like a
Like a gel.
porridge.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so is that helpful,
So
or what would you
it is.
recommend?
So there's something interesting about a chia or seeds in general that I didn't mention, and that has to do with, I don't know if we want to get into this, but it has to do with deuterium, which is a different form of hydrogen that can disrupt our mitochondria in a sense. And it's just when our mitochondria are making energy, I'll try to simplify this as much as I can. When our electrons are flowing through the mitochondria, we're making water, but we're also making ATP. When we make ATP through the mitochondria, we need hydrogen protons or positive charge from hydrogen, which the hydrogen comes in two forms that exist in nature. It exists in a light form and a heavy form, meaning that it has an extra neutron in there, uh, there's an electron, a neutron, and a proton. So it's heavy. So when it's spinning through the ATP machinery, it clogs it up. And deuterium is something that shows up on our planet in water that's closer to the equator, just because deuterium is present where there's a lot more sun. And if we have too much deuterium, it can clog up our mitochondria, and sometimes it's not great for us, although deuterium does have its place in the body. So when we talk about chia seeds, anything that has seeds tends to have a lot of deuterium in it. So some people in this space might say it's not great to have too many chia seeds because of the deuterium content of it. I happen to like them. I think I like the way I feel with them. Some people might say, oh, that's not such a good thing to have because of the deuterium content, which is a whole other story, which again, I don't know that I want to get into, but just so whatever feels good. I always tell people if it feels good for you and it's working, that's fantastic. Fulvic acid, humic acid, those have a lot of good minerals. That's something that's really nice to have as well. I actually have I add a little bit of fulvic acid to my coffee because it's full of minerals. That's something that's useful as well. But chia seeds, yes, they do form that hydration shell. They do have the ability to hydrate us a little bit better.
Well, there's so much going on. I mean, I know some people have problems with oxalates, but that has to do with gut microbiome and digesting those things. And chia seeds have also basil seeds. I just recently learned about basil seeds, which is another thing that apparently does even more protein and hydration. But anyway, there's a question. This is a good one. What is your opinion on the carbon-60 for mitochondrial health? Is something that I've been recommending because we've had some good stories success stories with some retinal diseases. But what is
I like carbon-60, C60, because it's basically it has a ton of electrons that we can donate. Anything that has a lot of electrons is really helpful. We're made of so much carbon. So carbon-60 is just a shell of tons and tons of energy that we can absorb. So I think that's great. And that's similar to, in the fulvic acid, there is carbon-60 in there as well. So it's very useful. DHA is another really useful. We have to have DHA, which again is a lot of free electrons that we can use because we're always talking about voltage. We want to increase voltage so that we have enough voltage and electricity so our eyes are working properly. And again, our eyes are the window to the health of the entire body based on what we're absorbing. So that high voltage, carbon-60 is very useful. DHA is useful. Again, anything that builds up electrons and energy or battery power in the body is going to be extremely useful for those issues as well.
Right. I think just obviously with all the water talk, in the beginning, you talked about grounding, getting your feet in the ground, the sunlight. Those are two major things too that are not related to any kind of, things that we're doing with water. So this was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. I don't see new questions on YouTube, but that was really, really, really interesting. We definitely want to have you back. It's always so great to learn. And obviously, anybody that has questions after this live show is over on YouTube, put them in the comments and I will either answer them myself. And if I don't know the answer, I will make sure I forward them to Dr. Valerie so that she can respond. So thank you so much. That was amazing. Goodbye, YouTube. We see you next week. Bye.